Hello, welcome. Before we get into this, I just want to. I'm going to start with college because, basically, other than the FCS, which, I hate to say, but I didn't see any of the FCS. I saw Holy Cross and North Dakota State, whichever one of the two was. And I saw North Dakota State came back from 21-0 in the fourth. But other than that, Army and Navy's the only college game, so I'll talk about that. But before we get into that, I just want to say rest in peace to Mike Leach. He was just reported dead this morning after being in the hospital for I think like 2 3 days. I think it was like Sunday night. I want to say or Sunday. They put him in the hospital saying he was in critical and that he really needed like prayers and everything. And then I just woke up this morning and apparently like something I've been told and read is like Leach has suffered a brain tumor or excuse me. Leach has suffered brain trauma that is not survivable. Leach's family is being called into Jackson to say their final goodbyes. Afterwards, it's presumed that Leach will be taken off life support. So just absolutely, absolutely awful situation that no one ever wants to hear about or deal with. The dude was 61 years old. We just also like rest in peace to Grant Wall too. That was something that just happened recently over Qatar. It's just really sad. But like back to the Mike Leach thing, like this is just awful. It was literally he just went from fine one day to boom. Like I'm sure he had maybe little health conditions. Obviously, I'm not close to him, so I don't know. But overall, it's just really sad. You hate to see stuff like that happen, and just prayers out to his family. And I hope that, I just hope they can be able to heal through all these hard times. Because good guy from what it seemed like. He was a really awesome. Like from watching college football, he seemed like an awesome personality, and he seemed like an awesome coach you'd want to play for. So just rest in peace. But yeah, another big thing: Navy fired their coach as well after they lost the Army, I think. So after Navy went from coming in very strong when they went into their conference, they've been like struggling a little bit as of recent. And yeah, they just. Sorry, I'm trying to find this game. But yeah, Navy fired their head coach. They ever since they've been in the ACC, stuff has been going down for them. Like they started off really hot, and then ever since they've kind of been mediocre at best. It ended up going to double overtime, and Army would come out on top 2017. And then, now that that's over, just basically going into the bowl games for this week, we'll have Miami of Ohio versus UAB in the Bahamas Bowl, Troy versus UTSA in the Cure Bowl. Both of those are on Friday. Saturday we'll have Cincinnati and Louisville in the Fenway Bowl. And then also that's the early morning one. Midday one's Oregon State versus Florida, and then along with that is Fresno State, Washington State, Rice and Southern Miss, BYU and SMU, and then the night game will be Boise State, North Texas. And then technically Monday will be UConn versus Marshall. I'll get into more of the college games after that when they get to that point. But yeah, I just want to talk about the Monday one in case my show comes out on Tuesdays like they have been usually. But yeah, that basically goes over like a lot of the college and what's going to be happening in the upcoming weeks. It's kind of like a quiet week for football as they're preparing for all the bowl games. So as we go on, I'll be talking about a little bit more about some of the bowl games and whatnot about that. But basically for these first few bowl games, I can't tell you much of anything. So I did watch some of these teams, but like matchup wise, some of these teams, like the two teams I'd want to lean towards is Troy, like that I like in their bowl games are Troy and Oregon State. Troy's favored by 2, Oregon State's favored by 10. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know too much about those teams, like talk too much about it. But as we go into some of the bigger college teams, I can give like a little bit more insight. I just know that Troy and Oregon State, out of all the games so far, Washington State's pretty good as well, even though they're 7-5. The record's a little iffy, and they play Fresno State. But yeah, overall, bowl games start next week, so it's really exciting because college season's basically over. Now we're just getting all the good games. Is just waiting till December 31st to watch the national championship game. But okay, so now we'll go into the NFL. As you can see, also change the background again. So this is now that we're basically close to the playoffs. I might probably do this to finish out the year. So this is what the playoffs would be like if it ended today. And without further ado, we're just going to get into the games. I'm going to talk about yesterday's games first because it's the most recent in my memory. I feel so awful for Kyler. I didn't get the game on in time. Like, I literally, as I turned the game on, I watched Kyler potentially tear his ACL. That's what a lot of the rumors are. I hate to see that. Back in my college day, I had My old freshman roommate, he was a running back, and I mean, it was one of our spring practices. He was just running through people, and he made a very similar cut, or tried to, and then instantly collapsed on the ground, grabbed his knee, tore his ACL. So, I mean, awful, awful stuff. And now it's just like anytime I see the non-contacts that look anywhere similar to that, it's almost like a damn, like you know what happens, and it just like me seeing that up close and personal, I'm getting chills talking about it. It's just absolutely, absolutely disgusting. I mean, I really hope that Kyler does well. I mean, I hope rehab goes well for him too, because yeah, I mean, he could go to there's potential he could go to a very dark place after all this, but it's going to be interesting to see, like, how he rehabs, the hard work he puts in, and see what we get on the other side of it. But I mean, overall, that game against the Patriots would end up winning. But I mean, overall, it was just like an injury-filled fest almost. Like, it just felt like every other second you would look up, oh, this guy's hurt. Oh, this guy's hurt. I mean, the Patriots lost like 5 or 6 people that game. They ended up losing Ramondre Stevenson. And, I mean, they just found a way to win. I mean, Mac Jones did a pretty good job at protecting the ball. I think he only had like 1 or 2 mistakes. But I'll admit, like, the mistakes were pretty big. So, I mean, like, he didn't do the best at protecting the job. But he didn't put them in harm's way. He had some good throws here and there. Overall, it was just like a good game for the Patriots. As you can see, they bumped themselves in the playoffs. They had a lot more to play for than the Cardinals did. And, I mean, yeah, the Cardinals just had a really rough going of it. Their season just continues to get worse and worse. And now with Kyler done for the year, I hate to say it, but it might save some jobs potentially. Because, I mean, if you think about the Cardinals team, they said it last night in the broadcast. Hollywood Brown, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, and Kyler. I mean, I don't think they included Kyler since he played every game up till now. But basically, all those wideouts and everything, and James Conner even, they all never played together. So, this Cardinals experiments, I mean, to this point, now that Kyler's hurt, I feel like they have to run him back again, just because, the fact that he was hurt, and they want to see what they got. But I don't know what to see, because, I mean, that Cardinals team has had a really, really rough go of things this year. So now hopping back, we'll start with the Thursday game. Thursday was the Rams and Raiders, and this was another shocking game. I mean, basically started with John Wolford. He didn't do too much. And then in a blink of an eye, the Raiders were up 10-0. And, I mean, honestly, they were up 10-0 in the first quarter, and then the Rams got a field goal to end it. And then the Raiders would kick another field goal in the second. No scoring in the third. And I won't lie, at that point you would think the game's over. Because, I mean, Baker, he had some moments here and there, but he didn't do too much. And then all of a sudden, he makes some plays here and there, makes another play. They score a touchdown with Cam Akers. And all of a sudden, I was watching the game, and they're kicking field goals, or they're driving down the field, and then it ends up in no points. And it's just I was sitting there watching the game, it's how much longer can this catch up with you? How much longer can this go until it catches up with you? And then sure enough, as the fourth quarter comes around, they let the Rams hang around just enough, and then Baker had probably one of the most improbable comebacks, and I would just say, the reason it's most improbable, I would say, one of the most probable comebacks in football recently, and it's just because, he joined the team, less than 48 hours ago. It's funny, Kirk Herbstreit's done the broadcast, he had an event on Tuesday that they went to, so he arrived quicker than Baker did. Baker apparently has a photographic memory. If he does, that will help him out a lot, and that would make a lot of sense of why he's been able to be so successful, quote-unquote successful when picking up these systems. I mean, honestly, I'm just really impressed by Baker. He did a really good job, and I mean, for both those teams, their seasons don't mean much. And for the Raiders, it mattered a little bit more since they were only 2 wins out of 7th, but their season's probably over now at this point after that, and all the rumors are Tom Brady's going to be going potentially to the Raiders, but we'll get into that in a minute when we get into the Bucs game. But overall, amazing win by Baker. I mean, that was just something awesome to see, and I mean, he might have saved himself, that game might have gave him another starting job potential, but that definitely at worst made him, he's going to, I hate to say he's going to be a career backup because I don't want to put that on him, but if it comes down to it, I mean, he has some highlights now to show him that potentially will help him stay in the NFL a little bit longer. I'm just going to go in based on order, what they are on my phone. So we'll bounce around between the 1 and 3 o'clock games. It's just some games deserve talking about a little bit more than others. This one, not too much other than some small stuff. I mean, the Buccaneers got beat up. They lost 35-7 to the 49ers. And I mean, Godfrey had 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy threw for 2, added 1 in on the ground. I mean, he only had 185, but Brock Purdy looked pretty good. I mean, it's to the point that I think he's a solid quarterback, honestly. I mean, if you look, most quarterbacks, they come in, they're timid. I mean, Mr. Irrelevant has done a really good job with himself. He's coming in, he's making the throws he needs to make. I mean, he's not. I feel if you watched him from his time at Iowa State to now, I mean, you would have to be pretty impressed. 'Cause, I mean, like, no offense, he was an Iowa State quarterback. He's pretty good, obviously. I mean, he was pretty accurate. It's just like coming out of college. I mean, personally for me, like, I didn't even think this dude would see the field this year. And now all of a sudden he's making great throws. Like, I mean, he had a few good throws last week where he's eating it in the face and he's just throwing the ball perfectly, almost to George Kittle. I mean, overall, he just did a really good job of maintaining the game, dominating the game. And he just had control. Tom Brady looks awful. He was yelling at Mike Evans. He missed throws all day. He got his thumb hit hard, so the injuries for him are going to be interesting because I am curious to see if anything happened. But overall, I mean, there's a lot of rumors that he's going to potentially go to the Raiders. Apparently, the rumors swirled earlier this year that he was all but set to go to the Raiders. Then John Gruden, I think, basically just said no, he doesn't want him. He's okay with Carr. So now that everything's going to disaster this year, Tom Brady's going to be a free agent. The rumors are he's going to go to the Raiders, so that's going to be something to keep an eye out for. Do I think he'll go to the Raiders? I mean, honestly, I won't lie. The more I hear it now, the more realistic it sounds. Like, him to return to the Bucs is going to be pretty hard at this point, I think, the way they're playing. And the fact that he's getting hit so much, we'll have to see. He's also rumored to go back to New England. That's another place. So it's going to be interesting to see this offseason because apparently there's a lot of running backs that are going to be in free agency. Tom Brady's going to be in free agency again. It's going to be interesting to see, like, some stuff that happens as the league goes on. Next game, that playoff-wise, I think Ravens got a clutch win against the Steelers, 16-14. Kenny Pickett got concussed pretty early on, so he got pulled from the game, and then Tyler Huntley took a nasty shot. He got concussed. So then it was Anthony Brown versus Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett throws 3 interceptions. I mean, I think the Ravens partially got saved for the fact that Huntley only went out, like, late in the third, I think. So the fact that Brown didn't have to play too much, the defense couldn't adjust that much. It just regardless, this was a hard-hitting game. Mitch, for the Steelers, just played awful. He had I think he had basically one good drive, had a few good throws, and then overall just really bad day. I mean, it's not much to talk about for the Steelers. Their season now is probably, they had a dark shot of doing something, but now their season is probably in the mud. And because, I mean, if you look at the standings, they dropped they're down at 13 all the way down there. I don't know if they dropped that far, but I mean, they're down there with the Colts, and that's not a good sign this year. But yeah, good one for the Ravens with the backup quarterback, Lamar. We don't know what's going to happen with him. We're going to have to see. Also, I'll talk about it when I get into the playoffs portion a bit, but I'll just mention it just down there. I'll talk about some of the teams that are going to be getting eliminated. Some teams are clinching the playoffs and whatnot. So, at least for the AFC, since we're on it right now, AFC and Houston, they're eliminated, as you can see from down there. First 2 teams eliminated. We're going to have a lot more clinching scenarios coming on. I do this at the beginning of my shows. I just forgot to think about it this time because I forgot, honestly, we're that deep in the season. Philly, with the win and some losses, they clinch. And then, as you can see, Chicago is the first team eliminated in the NFC. But speaking of the NFC, since we're right here, Lions, Vikings, I'll be honest, the Lions have my respect now. I mean, I knew the Vikings, there's some stat that like 3-10 in one-score games. If you flip the ball going their way, I forget what they said. You flip something. They're basically 3-10 in one-score games. Coming in, I mean, they were 1-2 point underdogs. I feel like the books knew something. Everyone's kind of fishy on this, and the Lions just dominated, honestly. I mean, the Vikings had some moments here and there where they had potential, but overall, I mean, it was just a Lions show. Jamison Williams, 1 reception, 1 touchdown from 40 yards out. He had an awesome game. He tore his ACL, and now he's back. Finally got his first NFL touchdown. I mean, you can see how excited he was. He's going to be a threat for them if he can stay healthy. I mean, just from that one play. I mean, I know nobody covered him, and there was a busted coverage, but he's a legit speed threat. And the way Jared Goff is playing, Jared Goff has been playing out of his mind. He's been playing really well. Jamal Williams, he is leading the NFL in touchdowns. I mean, this was a really good effort by the Lions. They've won 5 of their last 6. They even had a 3rd and 7 that they had to convert to win the game to throw a tackle pass to Penei Sewell. I mean, come on. The Lions are actually just so much fun to watch right now. I mean, if you look, we're in December football, and they're 1 away. Next week, the Giants of Seattle, the Giants of Washington play each other, and they are basically getting 2 into the spot. So if one of them loses and the Lions win, I mean, potentially the Lions are right there. As for the Vikings, I mean, that loss does hurt them a little bit, and it keeps the Lions close in the division, but they got to win out, and the Lions got to lose out. I think the Lions basically have the division wrapped up. They're playing the seed game right now because there's a chance. I don't think the Bucs will catch them. I think basically 4 set. I almost want to say like 4 and 5 are basically set. As long as the Cowboys don't have unbearable collapse. My guess is at this point the Bucks and Dallas are gonna play each other, and so Philadelphia's probably locked in at the 1. They have a chance to go 16-1 based on their schedule. So really, the 2-3 seed in the NFC is the only one that can move a little bit. And I mean, matchup wise, I mean, the way it's looking, I mean, the 2 playing the 7 is a lot better in the NFC than the AFC. So, like, as of right now, I'd want the 2 seed to play probably the Giants a little bit more than Washington, the way the offenses are. But either way, I mean, it's going to be a tough out this year. We'll bounce back to the AFC. So, Titans, Jaguars. Jaguars get their first win in 9 games. So, I think that's like 9 years, basically, because they play every year. So, the first time in 9 years, the Titans got a road win. Evan Ingram lit up the fantasy world. 15 targets, 11 receptions for 162, I think, and 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence had a really, really awesome game overall. This was just like, the Titans are starting to get a little scary. Derrick Henry was going off in the first half, and then into the second half, he has 2 yards. I mean, the skill positions are starting to lack a little bit, and something smells funky in Tennessee. I mean, they fired Robinson, who was their GM, after basically Brown lit them up. And it just feels like there's some change coming to New England. They have no skill positions other than Derrick Henry, and that's starting to catch up to them a bit. I mean, Jaguars have a dark chance to take this division. Will they? I don't think so. I mean, Tennessee would have to have a pretty big collapse, but I mean, there's a chance that the Jaguars are flirting with it. Now, Eagles, Giants, Eagles basically just blew the doors off, and the Eagles are just on a different level right now. They are playing some insane football. Also, at the end of the show, I'll wrap up injuries and potential stuff like that after I get through the games. Just not much to talk about. The Giants basically didn't show up, it seemed like. And they just were able to, and then they basically just got the doors blown off them by a very, very good Eagles team who is going to be an issue in the playoffs. Now, I think the farthest they'll go is the championship game this year. I don't think they'll go to the Super Bowl. There's something that, they mentioned it, I forget which podcast I was listening to. I was listening to somebody, but they were talking about the dynastic ability of the Eagles, and I mean, there's a real chance, like with the way that some of the rosters are working out. Some of the salaries are working out, the way they're paying some of the guys. I mean, there's a real shot that they can do something. Now, usually like 16-1. I don't think a 16-1 team has, or like a 15-1 Cincinnati games or whatever. I think it's been since 1985 that a 16-1 team, I think, has even made it to the Super Bowl, let alone win it. I'm not 100% sure. It's for sure a win, but I think like the making it to the Super Bowl is partially it too. But it's been when you go 15-1, the bye has been hurting a lot of teams recently. So we'll see. Yeah, I think the Eagles are a really, really good team. I think they're just like one step short this year, but I mean, their one issue they had was they couldn't stop the run that well, and then they signed Linval, Joseph, and Ndamukong Suh, and now they're starting to stop the run a little bit. So, I don't know. I'm not going to put my name to that saying, oh, hey, they aren't going to make the playoffs. They're going to lose in the first game. Because I don't know. Can they lose in the first game? They're definitely beatable, because I mean the Colts almost beat them with Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, but they've definitely shown signs that they're human. Do I think it's their year? Probably not. They have a chance, but I think that they've done so well this year that they're building something for the near future to where this is potentially like a Chiefs situation where maybe they make it, then get eliminated, and then the following year that they maybe go on and win it. Browns, Bengals, Deshaun Watson continues to really struggle. Joey Burrow had a really good game. There's a throw he had to Jamar Chase. They basically threw it at his hip, and it looked like that it was one of the tightest windows that you could throw in. I mean, it looked like Jamar didn't even see the ball either, and Joe Burrow just ripped that thing in there. I mean, Joe Burrow's been playing some really, really good football lately, and when it comes to the Browns, I mean, they just continue to struggle as an offense right now with Deshaun back. The real question is how long can you take off in football just affect you? I mean, he's been having a really, really rough go of it, but hopefully as the games go on, he'll get a little bit better. But for right now, I mean, yeah, it is rough for him going out. He's missing some throws. I mean, the throws looked a little bit better last week, but he's still missing a lot of throws. Had a bad interception as well. The Cowboys and Texans. Texans led this game up to a minute or so left, and then the Cowboys had a 98-yard drive to score. I mean, the thing I'm going to talk about this game is just the fact that the Texans made it that close. I mean, they get paid a lot of money too, and it's an NFL team, so I knew the plus 17 was a bit disrespectful. I mean, it wasn't without reason. I mean, the Cowboys just blew out the Colts, who are better than the Texans. But Texans came with some heart. They had Driscoll playing. They had Davis Mills playing. I mean, they basically took them up to the wire, and I mean, they're on the 2-yard line. They potentially should have gotten the end zone, but they don't. David Pearson, they're getting hurt and missing missing the end of the game, and I feel like potentially if they had a man on that goal line situation, if they were able to, I mean, they could have potentially put it in and scored, but I mean, Gallups is able to escape a win, so that's all they're going to talk. In 2 weeks from now, they won't even talk about this game with how close it was, but the way the Texans played the Cowboys today, they showed, at least to me, the Cowboys showed the fact that yeah, they had really 2 good games though. So I mean, I can't put too much on them. Like they're gonna have this is definitely like a look ahead game potentially or something like that. But I mean, what impressed me with the Cowboys is they played absolutely shitty and found a way to win, and that's really hard to do sometimes in the NFL. So I give them credit for that. But that was a really scary game for Cowboys fans, I'm sure. Chiefs Broncos. Kelsey became the 5th tight end in history to eclipse 10,000 receiving yards, and he's the fastest ever to the mark. So I mean, kudos to him. Awesome career for him. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer at this point. And for the Chiefs, they just got out the guns hot. They went up 27-0. Basically, the Broncos were out of the game. Jerry Jeudy had a flip out on a referee and on the sideline about, I don't know what, potential holding, potentially missing him. I don't know what it was, but if you watch the video, he is flipping out, like basically losing it. And then later he scores 3 touchdowns and has 73 yards. And they got like 8 receptions or something. So, I mean, he turned it up. I mean, the Broncos ran it back. It was 21-27 after getting scored 20. They scored 27 straight, the Chiefs did, and then the Broncos made it 21-27. Then Russell Wilson took a scary hit. He basically dove on the ground. I mean, the second you saw his head, too, he was out. I mean, if you, like, anytime they zoomed on the camera when he was on the ground, I mean, he was, like, it looked like he was back in Seattle the way he was, like, he's probably concussed if I had to guess. He had a lump on the side of his head after the game, too, so if he plays next week, I will be very shocked. But, I mean, overall, the Broncos just showed, like, I mean, they lost this game, yes, but they showed, like, what they can be, and hopefully, next year, things go a little bit better for them, because this was just an absolutely awful year. Awful year for them, but like I said, hopefully Russ is okay. That was really scary. And speaking of that, Devontae Parker last night, that was another one that was really scary. He got concussed. I mean, they zoomed in on him, and he looked like he was out too. And he's trying to walk to his. Then they showed the video of him. I mean, he had a great teammate, Aguilar. Somebody pointed this out on Twitter. I mean, if you see Devontae Parker, he's trying to line up in his receiver stance, and he's like going like this, stumbling, and you can tell that he's a bit woozy from the hit. And Aguilar was able to get the play stop, pointed it out. And I mean, that's a good teammate right there for that. And just, hopefully Devontae Parker's okay. The last 4 o'clock game was the the Panthers and Seahawks. Panthers basically ran all over the Seahawks. Sam Darnold looked all right. He had some good moments here and there, and I mean, the big story is the Panthers are 4-4 since the Wilkes hiring, and I mean, they are flirting with coming up on the Bucs. Will they? I mean, they're 4-8. I doubt it. But I mean, there's a chance that they catch the Bucs right here. I mean, that division is just so bad this year. It's probably the Bucs division to lose, but I mean, it's just a fact that happened. For the Seahawks, I mean, it was a bad game. I mean, they still lost only by 6, but it was just kind of like a bad game from the defense. They couldn't really get the Panthers off the field. Geno didn't have his best game. He kind of like was missing some throws here and there, but overall, I mean, it was just a very impressive win by the Panthers. Sunday night game, Dolphins-Chargers. Dolphins continue to struggle. I mean, they lost 17-23. I mean, Tua had 25 passing yards going into the half. I think he finished the game with 10 for 20 completions. I mean, I think it's in December. This team needs to figure itself out a little bit because there's a potential they'll be playing some cold weather games, and I mean, there's potential they miss the playoffs even. I mean, there's a chance here that they can finish 8-9 or 9-8 and get out of the playoffs. They really need to tighten up. As for the Chargers, it feels like they're just getting everyone back at the right time. Yes, they're still missing Joey Bosa, but they got Mike Williams back. This is the first time all season, like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen played together. I mean, they're still missing, and Josh Palmer, they had him playing as well, but they're still missing some receivers here and there that they love. But overall, they got their big 2 back at least, and Josh Palmer's been stepping up, been playing amazing. So, I mean, they had a really good game, and it was just a really good win by the Chargers, who really needed that win, because if they lost, there was a chance that they were done. I'm just going to scroll through some news just to end it off and just kind of like talk about, like I said, Kyler feared of torn ACL. We're going to learn more about it. That's just super sad for him. I feel awful for him about that. Apparently, Cole Beasley is signing with the Bills practice squad, so it's going to be interesting what will happen with that. Deebo Samuel, another injury that I forgot to mention about. He'll be back in the regular season. I mean, he had a scary ankle turn, and thankfully he avoided major injuries, so he should hopefully be okay. T.Y. Hilton actually signed with the Cowboys. So that's as much as I'm a Colts fan, it's awesome to see him sign, but it just hurts my soul that the Colts didn't get him when they could have used a veteran receiver like him all year. Monty Stevenson, like I said, he's one of the people who hurt his ankle last night. And it's going to be interesting to see, what happens with him. There's no reports yet if it's day-to-day, week-to-week, what. Jeff Wilson, he has a hip injury. He's going to be day-to-day. So that should be something interesting to look forward to and see what happens with him. I think Marcus Mariota is going to go on injury reserve, I think is what they're saying. But regardless, they're starting Desmond Ridder. So, I mean, it's going to be fun for the Falcons. They're basically looking towards the future, which, I mean, I think that's them basically saying they don't think much is going to happen with their season. And if they do, they at least want to get a look at Ridder. Odell Beckham, Chiefs. What's going to happen with the Chiefs? That says he's in contact with them, so we'll see. Carson Wentz is backing up. Carson Wentz is going to back up Heineke. I mean, makes sense with the injury that's happened to him and then with how good Heineke played. Salah's saying Mike White's going to play against the Lions, which if he does, he's a tough SOB. I mean, he basically had to get peeled off Milano's shoulder pads. I mean, he took a shot he took like 2 or 3 good shots that game. And I mean, I give him all the toughness credits because those are some big, big hits. I mean, those look like they hurt bad. For the Cowboys, Steele tore his ACL and MCL, sounds like, so they're really good defensive tackle, they're really good offensive tackle is gone now, so I think I think he's a guard, I might be wrong about that. Oh, he is a tackle, yeah, So yeah, that's what I thought, he was a tackle, so, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Apparently Jason Peters might be the starter, but they've been bouncing around with him and another guy, so we'll have to see. But yeah, like I said, Russell Wilson suffered the concussions. We'll see if he plays. I mean, I don't think so. Hendrickson broke his wrist. They didn't put him on IR though, so there's a chance he might play through it. But we're gonna have to see. I mean, that's a big injury for the Bengals, who really can't lose anybody more at this point. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. They're finally starting to get guys back, and so yeah, hopefully he gets back. We don't know what's going to happen with Huntley, who plays on Saturday now with a concussion. I think Anthony Brown's rumored to be the one who starts. And then, that's basically where the news kind of ends for Sunday injury-wise and Monday. I mean, regardless, Saquon hurt his neck, so we're good, I guess, to watch the injury report to see if he gets back on it with the neck or whatnot. But overall, I mean, as you can see, the playoffs are starting to get to the point where I think we're 4 or 5. We're almost under a month away, and it's getting towards crunch time. I mean, there's a lot of teams who are going to be very, very interesting when it comes to the playoffs this year. I think there's going to be a few matches where I should have known they weren't going to win. How'd that quarterback make it to the playoffs? But yeah, like I said, college. There's been a lot of interesting and sad news during college and NFL, but NFL season and college season are approaching their end, so as bad as all this tough news has been, it's been a kind of sad day at the news office for that. Hopefully, going into a good week, it'll start to get a little bit better. Before I go, we'll just look at the Week 15 slate real quick. Thursday is the 49ers Seahawks. That's probably one of the better Thursday night games we've had in a while, so that's pretty cool. Saturday, we got some Saturday games, and then starting next week, there's games on Christmas Eve, all Saturday, so it's like replacing a Sunday. Get into that more, obviously, next week, but that's going to be very, very interesting slate. So yeah, Colts, Vikings, Ravens, Browns. I mean, those 2 games have the potential to be meh. But the really fun game should be the Dolphins, Bills on Saturday night. That should be very interesting. And then Sunday, Giants, Commanders. That's gonna be a big game. Eagles, Bears, not really. Lions, Jets, potential to have a good game. Chiefs should handle the Texans. Cardinals, Broncos. I mean, that went from a good game to both quarterbacks probably won't be playing, so that should be 2 backups. So that's going to be, man. I mean, as you can see, they don't have a line for it. Patriots, Raiders. I think the Raiders were favored originally, but now that the Patriots won, I think the line's going to end up flipping to the Patriots being favored. Panthers, Steelers. Cowboys, Jaguars will actually have the chance to be very interesting the way Jaguars have been playing. They look like a lot better football team. And then Chargers, Titans. Buccaneers, Bengals, and then that will be the. Oh yeah, I was trying to find the Monday or the Sunday night thing. Sunday night game will be Giants Commanders after their tie last week, and that's going to be a big game for the playoffs. And then Monday night's going to end with the Rams and Packers. But yeah, as I said, this should be. Looking at these games, there should be a fun week of games next week. There's a few bowl games as well that's going to be going on during the week, so should be a lot of fun for football. And then yeah, it's just that time of year where the snow starts falling and it's nut crunching time because yeah, it's about time for that playoff push.